to the Tuesday Night Touchdown Podcast with your hosts, Reese Downing and Jacob Workman.
What's going on, guys? It is TNT, Tuesday Night Touchdown Podcast, NFL edition, week 8. With me, as always, is my co-host and fine citizen, as I was called in the last episode, Mr.
Right.
Jacob Workman. Jake, what's going on, man?
Just two fine citizens talking
right.
NFL football. Everything's good, minus the Lions' performance last week. But we'll be back. Don't worry.
Well, it wasn't just the Lions' performance. It was the betting public's performance, but we'll get into that in a little bit.
Yeah, it was bad performance from two fine citizens and from the Lions. So we'll see how this week goes.
Oh man, we only going up from here. So let's briefly talk about last week. Workman and I both finished 3-10. Workman missed the New Orleans, Cleveland, Washington, Tampa Bay, Buffalo, Vegas, Detroit, Rams, Packers, and Niners games. I missed the Commanders, Bucks, Bills, Raiders, Lions, Rams, Chargers, Packers, Dolphins, and Niners games. So we both went 3-10. The good news is that we both had our locks. Workman picked KC and I picked Seattle. That leaves Workman at 4-3 for the season, I believe, 4 locks. I am 7-0. I have not missed a lock yet this year, so hopefully I can keep that rolling here. We'll talk about everything that happened here briefly. First and foremost, to jump into some of last week's stuff. Before we jump into NFL, we want to give a big shout out here to the Delta Eagles. So for those who missed it, we did interview Delta Eagle head football coach Chris Overholt in a special edition interview last week. If you did not get a chance to check out that interview, please do. It was awesome. It's about 30 minutes. It should be on all of our platforms. Very, very solid interview. We really appreciate Coach Overholt joining us. The Eagles can actually say goodbye to their 3-game losing streak because they got a huge win against Norwell, 47-7 in the first round of the sectionals. I said this in the NCAA show. Can't say it was the luck of the TNT podcast, but you also can't not say it was the luck of the TNT podcast. The Eagles are now going to face Yorktown at home this Friday at 7 p.m. With a win, Coach Ovi is going to get win number 50 as the head coach there at Delta. So good luck to Coach Ovi and the Eagles. Workman, what were your thoughts on the game? I know you sat down and watched the whole thing.
Pretty much a dominant performance. So it was very nice to see. Came out and just absolutely rolled them. It's a great way to start the tournament. I'm sure Coach Ovi had something he could say to the team to get them motivated, but you have to be pretty happy with a win like that. I mean, and this week I know it's pretty serious week for Delta playing Yorktown. So
yeah, there's some extra special sauce.
Yeah, pretty motivated team this week, and they get to play them at home. So just want to send a shout out to Coach Ovi and the Eagles, and good luck this Friday. We will definitely be rooting for you.
That's right. Great job this week, or last week, I should say. Hopefully you guys can continue things rolling here into next week, going against the arch rival Yorktown Tigers. All right. So let's talk about last week as far as NFL picks go. October continues to be a dud for the betting public. Is for the second week in a row, the house has won big. In week 7, we had 5 outright upsets of heavily favored teams, and underdogs covered the spread in 5 of the 6 early games. The 2 biggest underdog favorites, the Lions and the Dolphins, both lost, while a ton of parlay bets were ruined after the 1 p.m. games as the Buffalo Bills lost to the New England Patriots. We'll jump into that game here first. The New England Patriots beat the Buffalo Bills 29-25 on Sunday, securing the Pats' second win of the season and Bill Belichick's 300th regular season win as a head coach, joining George Halas and Don Shula as the only 3 coaches in history to meet that mark. The Bills' first half struggles continue as they went into the halftime down 13-3, and this marks the 3rd straight week that Buffalo has gone into halftime down this season. Buffalo battled back and used a forced fumble by Kendrick Bourne to take the lead, but the Patriots scored on the final possession of the game to take the win with a game-winning touchdown catch by Mike Gesicki, who then proceeded to do possibly the worst gritty in the history of everything.
It was awesome.
Mac Jones did have a solid day. He finished 25 of 30 for 272 and 2 touchdowns. My question to you, and I know this is a difficult one because you're not a huge fan of Buffalo, but they are dealing with some injuries. That said, slow starts and poor game execution seems to have bit them more than once this year. Buffalo is a team that just seems year after year they find ways to shoot themselves in the foot. Not an easy question to answer, but what do you think is an answer to start fixing some of these recurring issues that seem to plague this team?
Yeah, I don't have a lot of answers for this team. I haven't liked this team all year. Like I've said, I didn't even pick them to make the playoffs. I was probably one of the few people on earth that didn't. I don't like this team. I see a regression. Josh Allen he was trying to force a lot. The Patriots offense, which has been pretty bad, actually had success against them. So I mean, there's a lot of things that you have to take away from that game that you just don't like. For now, they're on a short week to come back. The good thing is it is a home game. But to come back on a short week and play Tampa, which Tampa's hit miss. You never know what you're going to get with them, but they do have offensive weapons. So I am interested to see what Tampa's offense can do against the Bills defense. But I don't truly know how you fix this team, to be honest. I haven't thought they were good to begin with, and now that they're injured, like that's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, it doesn't help that they lost Doxson Knox, so it looks like Dalton Kincaid's going to be getting a majority of the shares there at tight end. I don't really know what the answer is either. I think the good thing for Buffalo heading into this game against Tampa is that it looks like Baker Mayfield's a little banged up, as well as Chris Godwin, so that could bode well from them. But yeah, I don't really know what the answer is to get this team right. They have the talent on the team, and I know that they're dealing with some injuries, but offensively, they should be performing better than they are. All right, so let's go into the next game here. The Detroit Lions at the Baltimore Ravens. I know you don't want to talk about it, but the Ravens handed the Detroit Lions their second loss of the season in the form of a 38-6 throttling. Detroit's defense struggled from the jump, surrendering 355 yards of offense in just the first half and a total of 503 yards in the game. In a statement game for the Ravens, they scored a touchdown on each of their first 4 drives. Lamar Jackson made the case to be in the midseason MVP conversation, finishing 21 for 27 for 357 yards and 3 touchdowns, as well as 36 yards and a rushing touchdown. Jackson, Gus Edwards, Mark Andrews, and Nelson Aguilar all found the end zone, and 9 different players had at least 1 reception on the Ravens. Detroit didn't manage a first down until late in the second quarter, and Goff finished 33 of 53 for 284 yards and a pick. Both Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jahmyr Gibbs had respectable games, with Gibbs getting his first touchdown of his career. So the question here, obviously this is a throwaway game for Detroit, so I'm not going to look too much into this game on their side of the ball. So instead, let's talk about the Ravens. Baltimore is now 5-2 in a division where every team is 500 or better, and every team is on a 2-game winning streak. Looking at the AFC, are the Ravens the more complete team than the Chiefs?
I don't think so. I don't think so yet. I think they're very, very, very close, though. I do think they're the closest team to them in the AFC, though. Now that the Chiefs brought Hardman back, I mean, I know he didn't do a lot for the Jets, but I think that's a huge factor for the Chiefs. Bring him back. He knows the system. He's going to be an immediate factor. I liked what he did when he was there in the past. The Ravens, they are very healthy and very good. That's one thing that they have going for them. If they can keep the injuries away, I think they're probably going to be the 2 seed in the AFC, right behind the Chiefs. But I don't think they're quite there yet to overtake the Chiefs as the number 1 team in the AFC.
Yeah, I think that this Ravens defense may have a slight step back from Kansas City in terms of the defense, but I think the Ravens offense has more weapons. Mark Andrews, I mean, we have this conversation before. The tight ends tiered rankings is Travis Kelce, and then there's a huge drop, and then there's a slew of other guys. Mark Andrews is in that conversation for the number 2 tight ends position. But as far as offensive weapons go outside of that, despite them losing their key running back in J.K. Dobbins for the year, Gus Edwards has been serviceable, and they have a lot of weapons on offense, especially in the receiver core. So I think this is a team that could be very deadly heading into the playoffs. I would love to see Kansas City versus Baltimore in an AFC championship. I think that would be such a fun game to watch.
Yeah, that would be a great game. I just think the Chiefs, people just kind of still doubt them just because of the name factor. Like when you hear the Ravens, you got Odell Beckham and you got Lamar Jackson. Mark Andrews is a big name. Zay Flowers is becoming a big name. I mean, there's names all around, where the Chiefs, it's like, who the hell's Sky Moore? Who are these guys? They're actually very good players, and Andy Reid, if anyone, I'm going to trust to do something with it. So that's where my difference comes in. Is I just think the Chiefs overall are still just a better team, and with the Chiefs' improved defense this year, I think that makes it even more of a huge factor.
For sure. All right. So the now last thing we're going to talk here before we jump into this week's picks is not a game, but the officiating. So we talked about this briefly during the college football edition of our podcast because it was a problem in NCAA football as well. But the referees negatively impacted multiple games this week. Starting with the Browns and the Colts, this game featured 8 lead changes, which is the most in an NFL game in the last 4 years. The Colts would have potentially won this game if not for one, but 2 highly questionable calls on the Colts defense that resulted in allowing the Browns to score a game-winning touchdown. First was an illegal contact penalty on a 3rd and 4 where the Colts sacked Browns PJ Walker for a 13-yard loss, and the second one came on a more than iffy pass interference call on a ball that was uncatchable out of the back of the end zone. Another one came in the form of the Pittsburgh Steelers and LA Rams game. The Steelers decided to go for it on 4th and 1 on the LA 39-yard line instead of attempting a 56-yard field goal. Kenny Pickett ran a sneak play that very clearly did not make the line of scrimmage, but the ref spotted the ball way ahead of where his forward progress was and gave him the first down. And because the Rams were out of timeouts and the play was just prior to the 2-minute warning, Sean McVay had no way to call for a replay, which would have ended up reversing the call. Had the call been correct, the Rams would have taken over with favorable field position, down a touchdown with 2 minutes on the clock, and an opportunity to give the ball to Matthew Stafford to drive down and win the game. So my question is this. It's kind of a 2-part question. So first, do you think the NFL should open up more penalties to have the ability to be challenged? And second, what do you think about the idea of having a booth referee that at any point during the game, whether it's 2 minutes, whether everybody's got timeouts left or whatever, has the ability to call down on the field and reverse a blown call?
Yeah, they definitely need to mix in the college system with like the fast sky judge. Like you'll see sometimes that the NFL will use that like instant change where they will call in from the command center and change it immediately. But I do think it needs to be used more. And 100%, it was awful this week. The Rams game is the one that got me. Obviously, I was watching it, and it was so bad how far off he was. And I actually thought that there might be an outside shot that they would come out and throw the instant judge to flip it just because it was that bad. But I guess the lack of McVay not having the timeout, Rams couldn't challenge it at all. They just said, no, we're just going to end the game. That doesn't matter, which is not the way a game should end. But yeah, I definitely think they should go to some sort of mixed system with the sky judge on top of every play being reviewed like college. And to go to the challenging the penalties, I, they've tried it and it didn't work. So I think it's kind of a hard thing to do, especially on penalties that are opinions like pass interference. Like that, I think that's where I think you could open up face masks to being challengeable just because some of those are not face masks and they do get called and they're huge penalties. But I think pass interference and illegal contact and stuff like that is stuff that I don't think you can really do that. I don't think it's something you can win.
Yeah, that makes sense. I just, it's so disappointing when you see games like that happen where they've been decided by guys that are not on the field playing. I don't know how many penalties. I think there would have to be a very healthy conversation during the owners' meetings to figure out if they were to expand the penalties to be able to be challenged, which ones those would be. But I 100% think they need to get a sky referee out there because leaning on just the command center is ridiculous. And it should be easy enough for somebody that's sitting up in a booth to be able to hit a button that buzzes the head referee that says, "Hey, we want to take a look at this one more time." That would have easily fixed the Kenny Pickett situation, and
Yep.
I don't think the coaches should be penalized because they have to use um, timeouts, especially in situations where you're already approaching 2 minutes and you're trying to stop the clock in order to hopefully get the ball back, and then you make a stop only to end up getting it taken away from you anyway. That's bullshit. So
Yeah,
um,
that game was such a good game for it to end on such crap like that. Like the Rams made the huge stop. It was like there was no one in that stadium that thought he got that first down. It wasn't even close, and they gave
no,
it to him. It
and
was so bad.
you think about the divisional races that are happening right now. I
Yeah, it
mean,
was
that
huge.
has implications for both of these teams because the
Yep.
NFC West is a tighter race than what it should be right now because the Niners have dropped 2. And then you have the Steelers that are sitting in second place, but every team in the AFC North right now has a 2-game winning streak going, and they're all within a game and a half of each other. So that's it's just
Yeah, as a partial Rams fan, I was pretty upset about that. I had just watched the Lions get just absolutely murdered. I had to witness that. And you see a great game between the Rams and the Steelers. I mean, it was that was a fun game to watch. Unfortunately, it was at uh Acrisure West, SoFi Stadium. The whole damn thing was waving terrible towels, which is upsetting to begin with. But I just for a game to end like that, it's so ridiculous. And the NFL has to be able to see this and be like, we can't have our biggest product like that. Can't be the ending of games. Same with the Colts. That was the biggest screw job ever. Like the ball landed almost in the crowd. Like clearly was uncatchable. Like the pass interference that they called. I don't know. They've got to get something figured out with it because it's not good. And why the referees are not full time yet is still one of the biggest questions I don't understand. Like I think that can go a long way.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like the NFL doesn't have enough money for it. I mean, there's
right.
Instead of putting a team in London or Germany, how about we make referees full time to improve the quality of the game here, and then talk about expansion? You know, and if that would have happened during the playoffs, like, can you imagine?
Oh my God, yeah, that would have been awful. And just like they've even there's been multiple reports. The balls are chipped already. The balls are chipped. Why can't we use modern day technology to get first down readings on these ball placements? Like it cannot be this difficult. They clear as day did not make that. And it would have been a very simple do a VAR review like soccer. And it would have been instant turnover, Rams ball. Here we go. It was a simple solution.
Instead, we try to figure out ways to how to put a 17th camera in the pylon.
As soon as the guy jumps over, it gets knocked over and you can't see shit anyway. Like it doesn't make any sense. It's the biggest waste of time.
Yeah. So hopefully things get a little bit more improved here as we go along. But both NCAA football and NFL this week definitely suffered from some poor penalties. All right, let's run through some quick news and notes here before we get into the games. First, Deshaun Watson did exit the Cleveland Indy game early and was replaced by PJ Walker. It appears he's still not fully healthy. He's back to day at a minimum. Denver Broncos safety Kareem Jackson was ejected in the fourth quarter after a nasty hit against the Packers' Luke Musgrave. Jackson has been suspended for 4 games after being fined 4 times for illegal hits and ejected once previously in this season alone for rough hits. So something to keep an eye on there. Not that Denver's been playing that well, but Kareem Jackson has now been suspended for 4 games. Chris Godwin was listed as a non-participant on the first practice report this week due to a neck injury. He's now listed as questionable. Dawson Knox is slated to go undergo wrist surgery and will be out for at least a couple weeks, leaving Kincaid as their number 1 tight end. The Bills have placed Damian Harris on IR Friday due to a concussion and neck injury. Kyron Williams was also placed on IR due to his ankle injury and will be out at least until week 12. Christian Watson of Green Bay appears to have injured his right knee on the final drive of the Broncos game, and he is currently listed as questionable. Bijan Robinson, who pissed off a whole bunch of fantasy football owners, was not listed on the injury report last week, but barely played at all. Arthur Smith came out and said that he was not feeling well. Curious that wasn't communicated ahead of time. He is expected to be back in action this week. Saquon Barkley hyperextended his left elbow during Sunday's win over the Commanders, but he did say he would be good to go for the Week 8 matchup against the Jets. The Browns' Jerome Ford is dealing with a low-grade high right ankle sprain and will be out for the next 1 to 2 weeks. And then finally, Justin Fields is already listed as doubtful for Sunday's matchup against the Chargers, leaving Tyson Bagent under center. One more quick note here for those who did not see. Chris Olave was arrested for reckless driving. It looks like he was driving 70 in a 35, which sounds like he was hauling ass down a residential neighborhood. Have not heard anything as far as what's going to happen with him, if he's going to see any suspensions or fines or anything like that, but it is something to keep an eye on this week as you are making your picks. All right, guys, let's jump into some week 7 action here, or week 8, I should say, excuse me. Starting off, our Thursday night matchup here features the 3-3 Tampa Bay Buccaneers hitting the road to Buffalo after losing to the Falcons in Tampa 13-16 to meet a Buffalo Bills team that is returning home after losing to the New England Patriots 25-29 in New England. With the loss in Tampa, the Bucs have relinquished first place in the NFC South to the Atlanta Falcons, while the Buffalo Bills sit in second place in the AFC East at 4-3. Buffalo is favored here by 8.5.
Yeah, I'm going to roll with Buffalo at home on the short week. It's a lot to ask a team to travel up there, prepare for Buffalo in 3 days. So I do like the Bills to go ahead and get the cover at home this week on Thursday.
Yeah, Buffalo leans into the passing attack here, so trying to force the run game. I think they can take care of business, so I'm going to take Buffalo here minus the points as well. In the first of our 1 p.m. matchups, we have an NFC East divisional matchup as the 6-1 Philadelphia Eagles hit the road after beating the Miami Dolphins to face off against a 3-4 Washington Commanders team that heads back to the nation's capital after losing a close game to the New York Giants. Philadelphia looks to maintain their hold on first place in the division, while the Commanders sit third. Philly is favored by 6.5.
Yeah, Philly made a move yesterday, making a trade out of safety from the Titans. Bayard. Any more help that team needs, just what the world needs. That team is so good. I'm not gonna doubt them in less than 7. I have to take it. I'm taking the Eagles.
Yeah, Philly's rolling right now. This could be a hangover game against a divisional opponent, but so it could maybe end up closer than expected. But I see Philly getting the W here by at least a touchdown. So I'm going to take the Eagles minus the points. And you mentioned the trade for Kevin Byard. As a Cowboys fan, it just hurts me that they constantly are going out and making moves, and we just sit there twiddling our thumbs. It drives me crazy. Like that team needed any help on
Yeah,
either side of the
right.
ball. They also picked up Julio Jones last week, who walked into the team and caught a few balls. And I
Yep.
mean, he's already making an impact, and he's like 50. It's insane.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the next one here, guys. The 5-2 Jacksonville Jaguars continue their road trip after a Thursday night win in New Orleans last week to meet a 4-2 Pittsburgh Steelers team that won a controversial game in Los Angeles on Sunday against the Rams. Jacksonville is on a 4-game winning streak heading into the Sunday matchup, while the Steelers have won 4 of the last 5, including their last 2 at home. The Jags sit at the top of the AFC South, while the Steelers are 1 game back from the Ravens in the AFC North. Jacksonville is favored by 2.5.
Yeah, I like the Jags to keep the win streak going. They've been playing some really good football lately. It's kind of hard to doubt them. I know Pittsburgh really they're playing much better than they were also, but I just like Jacksonville to keep it rolling here and cover the 3 or 2.5.
Yeah, I'm with you. Jacksonville's looking really good here the last 4 weeks. I think they're starting to find their footing. Pickett does seem to be playing better with some of his support returning from injuries, and the Steelers defense is obviously looking good, but I'm going to take Jacksonville here minus the points. If this line shifts to 3 or more ahead of Sunday, I may think about taking Pittsburgh, but as it sits right now, I'm going to take Jacksonville. Next up, we have the 3-4 New Orleans Saints hitting the road to the crossroads of America after Thursday night loss to the Jacksonville Jaguars to face a 3-4 Indianapolis Colts team that lost a heartbreaker last week to the Cleveland Browns after some questionable penalties. The Saints have lost their last 2 games and have fallen to 3rd place in the NFC South, while the Colts have also lost their last 2 games and have fallen a half game behind the Houston Texans for 3rd in the AFC South. One important note on this game to watch is, again, and we just talked about it, Chris Olave was arrested last night for reckless driving and may not be available for this game. Indy is right now favored by 1.5 at home.
Quick question: is Jameis playing?
I don't know if Jameis is playing. He should be. He's playing on the sidelines. That's for damn sure.
So Jameis not the starter. I've already ruled I'm never picking the Saints again. Give me the Colts at home to cover.
All right. Well, the Saints offense is looking scrambled right now, and Chris Olave possibly missing this doesn't help. The Saints defense is tough, but so is Cleveland's, and the Colts held up. So I'm going to take Indy here. All right. The 3-3 Houston Texans travel to Charlotte to face off against the winless Carolina Panthers. Both teams are coming off a bye, with the Texans previously coming off a win against the Saints and the Panthers coming off a loss on the road to the Miami Dolphins. Houston sits in second in the AFC South and continues chasing the Jags, while the Panthers sit at the bottom of an otherwise competitive NFC South and are still searching for that first W. Houston is favored by 3.
Yeah, I think things are going to get interesting in Carolina here right before the trade deadline. It's kind of the thing, does Brian Burns stay on the Panthers after the trade deadline? And what I'm really hoping the answer is no, and the Lions trade our first round pick for him, because that would be huge.
Whew.
As a Florida State fan, I would absolutely love to have Brian Burns on the Lions. So I don't know. You just have to kind of have those doubts when it comes this close to a trade deadline with a team that's struggling, and will they trade their stars? So I like Houston on the road here to go ahead and cover the 3.
Yeah, I think this game becomes a little tougher for Houston, being that both these teams are coming off a bye, but CJ Stroud has a little extra motivation in this one, I think, to prove that he should have been the number 1 pick. So I'm going to take Houston here minus the points as well. The 3-4 Los Angeles Rams hit the road after a 3-game home stint and a 17-24 loss against the Steelers to match up against a 4-2 Dallas Cowboys team that returns home after a bye week and a big win against the LA Chargers in LA. Dallas has won both home games this year and currently sits second in the NFC East behind the NFC leading Philadelphia Eagles, while the Rams currently sit in third in an increasingly tight NFC West race. Dallas is favored by 6.5.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm going to take Dallas minus the 6.5 in this one. The Rams they've gone through some battles the last few weeks. Now they're going on the road to face Dallas, their defense. I think it's kind of the main question here is if they can get Henderson going a little bit against the Cowboys defense, then I think they might have an outside shot of winning this game. Yeah, but if we rely on Stafford to throw it 40 times, I think it's not going to be good. So I'm gonna go with the Cowboys minus the 6.5.
Yeah, I'm rolling with the boys here too. Hopefully, we'll be able to get a little healthier on the bye. We've played much better at home so far this year. So, yeah, give me Dallas to move to 5-2 here and cover the spread. All right, the 4-3 Atlanta Falcons continued their road trip after a 3-point win in Tampa Bay against the Buccaneers to face a 2-4 Tennessee Titans team that is coming off a bye week and has lost their last two. The Falcons have moved into first place in a competitive NFC South after their win against division rival Tampa last week, while the Titans sit at the bottom of the AFC South and appear to be heading into a fire sale after trading Kevin Byard to the Philadelphia Eagles this week and fielding calls for players like Derrick Henry and Treylon Burks. The Falcons are favored by 2.5.
Yeah, this one was tough for me. I'm going with Vrabel coming off the bye. I like the Titans in this one just at home. Atlanta is so hit and miss, and Ritter is so hit and miss. I can't get quite the feel on them. I trust Vrabel, and I like Tennessee's offense a little bit too. So I'm going to go with them to get the out. I think they'll outright win this game.
Yeah, I think this could end up being a pretty low scoring game as Tennessee's strength on defense is stopping the run, and that's Atlanta's offensive strength. Another thing to consider here is the familiarity between Arthur Smith and Tennessee's coaching staff because he was the OC there. What could end up being the difference here, I think, is the possible turmoil in the locker room in Tennessee because it's become known league wide that they're taking phone calls for virtually anybody on that roster. And I can see Atlanta kind of taking advantage of the particular potential locker room frustration. So I'm going to take Atlanta here minus the points. The 3-3 New York Jets return after a bye week and stick around in the Big Apple for a quote-unquote away game as they head up against the 2-5 New York Giants. The Jets are previously coming off a huge win against the Philadelphia Eagles, while the Giants took care of business last week at home against division rival Washington Commanders. The Jets are a half game behind Buffalo and sit in third in a tight AFC East race, while the Giants sit one game back from the Commanders and currently sit in last place in the NFC East. The Jets are favored by 3.
Yeah, I'm gonna take the Jets to kind of keep this going a little bit. I like them to get the cover. It's a neutral site essentially because both of them's home stadium, so not a big factor there. And I probably would have to guess there's going to be more Jets fans there than Giants fans, you would think. But I like the Jets to get the win and the cover in this one.
Yeah, I think the Jets coming off the bye week here doesn't bode well for the Giants. The Jets seem to be improving on the offensive side of the ball, and the Jets defense doesn't have a lot of weak points, which is going to make it hard for the Giants to try to find the end zone through two players in Waller and Barkley. So I'm going to take the Jets here minus the points. The 2-5 New England Patriots look to carry their momentum on the road after a big win at home against the Buffalo Bills last week to face a 5-2 Miami Dolphins team that returns home after a 17-31 Sunday night loss to the Philadelphia Eagles in Philly in this AFC East divisional matchup. The Patriots sit at the bottom of the division while the Dolphins have a one-game lead on the Buffalo Bills. Miami is favored by 9.5.
Yeah, so some fun announcements last week. So the Dolphins going to be on in-season Hard Knocks. You got to look forward to that with Mike McDaniel. You know that's going to be just
I cannot wait.
Some great lines there. Also, Jalen Ramsey he's practicing, so we're going to see him in the next few weeks, which is huge for Miami. New England's offense for the first time pretty much all season last week showed some promise, but I don't think they're going to be able to go on the road to Miami. And Miami's going to need to come back after that loss in Philly. I think Miami covers the 9.5.
Yeah, I look for this to be a bounce back game for Miami as well. New England got a nice win against Buffalo last week, but it's going to be a lot harder to accomplish on the road in Miami, especially with the Dolphins likely playing pretty angry. So I'm going to take Miami here to cover. Another divisional matchup, this time in the NFC North, as the 3-4 Minnesota Vikings hit the road after a big home win against the San Francisco 49ers on Monday night to meet a 2-4 Green Bay Packers team returning home on a 3-game skid after losing 17-19 to the Denver Broncos. Minnesota has quietly moved into second place after winning the last two despite dealing with injuries to the likes of Justin Jefferson, while the Packers have slid to third place in a division and are only a half game ahead of the Bears. The line has flipped since Monday night, and the Vikings are now favored by 1.5 on the road.
Yeah, the Vikings beating the beat up Niners really helped their line in this one. I don't. Neither of these teams are very good. It's been proven. I'm going to take Green Bay at home, and I like them for the outright win. I know the line was flipped before, but now that it's flipped in my favor, I definitely like Green Bay with the outright win.
Yeah, I'm going to take Green Bay at home here plus the points as well. I think Love will settle a little bit more when he's in Lambeau. He'll have another week under his belt with both Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon back in the mix. Minnesota's coming off a short week where we could have a hangover after a big win against the Niners, so I'm going to roll with the Packers here. The first of our 4 o'clock games features the 4-2 Cleveland Browns continuing their road trip, heading west to Seattle after sealing a win that virtually was handed to them by the refs against the Colts last week to meet a 4-2 Seahawks team that is coming off a win against the Arizona Cardinals. Cleveland sits third in their division and has won 2 in a row, but needs to keep that pace as every team in the AFC North has also won 2 games in a row, while the Seahawks are suddenly in NFC West contention as they sit only a half game behind the Niners, who have lost their last 2. Seattle is favored by 3.
Yeah, Seattle's been playing well, and Cleveland last week with Deshaun in the Colts game, he looked awful. That
He's
guy's
not
making
healthy.
clearly not, and he's making more money than anyone on earth, and he's out there doing that. I don't know. I think the Browns are in better shape not playing him right now, but on the road in Seattle, I like Seattle to come back and get the win and the cover.
Yeah, I think the Seahawks will take this one at home. They can lean into the ground game, pressure the Browns on offense with that iffy quarterback situation. So give me the Hawks minus the points. The 3-3 Cincinnati Bengals head out to Golden Gate City after their bye week and a previous home win against the Seahawks to match up against a skidding 5-2 San Francisco 49ers squad that's returning home after losing their last 2 games on the road at the hands of the Cleveland Browns and Minnesota Vikings. Cincinnati sits in last place in a tight AFC North, but has won their last 2 and is only 1.5 games out of first place, while the Niners maintain their hold on the NFC West, but are only a half game ahead of the Seahawks. The Niners are favored by 5.5.
Yeah, obviously injuries throughout the week here are going to be a big story. Unfortunately, we're picking this on a Tuesday, so a lot of injury changes are going to happen during the week. But I'm going to take the Niners at home minus the 5.5. I still think they're the better team. Cincinnati has been so hit miss, and this is going to put Cincinnati under 500 with the loss here too. So it's kind of a crushing blow if they do lose this one. You think they probably are going to go into this one with kind of a desperation mode, but I do like the Niners in this one at home.
Yeah, to your point, that desperation mode I think is going to help them out. This becomes more interesting with McCaffrey not being 100%, and both Deebo Samuel and Trent Williams sounds like they're going to be out. Couple that with the Bengals having a bye week to get healthier, and Burrow is getting closer to feeling 100%. I'm going to take Cincy here plus the points. The 5-2 Baltimore Ravens head to Arizona after routing the Detroit Lions 38-6 to meet a 1-6 Arizona Cardinals team that just lost in Seattle last week and is on a 4-game skid since beating the Dallas Cowboys at home in Week 3. Baltimore sits at the top of a tightly contested AFC North, while the Cardinals sit at the bottom of the NFC West. Baltimore is favored by 8.5.
Yeah, I watched Baltimore last week do something pretty impressive, so I know what Arizona is. I'm going to take Baltimore. I would probably take Baltimore up to 14 right now. So I like them a lot.
Yeah, Lamar is playing lights out. Arizona is starting to play like we thought they were going to play at the start of the season. So I'm going to take Baltimore here to cover easily. Patrick Mahomes and the AFC leading Kansas City Chiefs take their 6-1 record on the road after a home win against the LA Chargers to meet another divisional opponent as they face off against the 2-5 Denver Broncos, a team that won their first home game last week against the Green Bay Packers 19-17. Kansas City appears to have all but decided the AFC West race as they hold a 3-game lead against the second place 3-4 Raiders, while Denver looks to climb out of the bottom of the division while sitting a half game back from third place just behind the Chargers. KC is favored by 7.5.
Yeah, give me the Chiefs. It's pointless for me to even talk about the Chiefs. You know, I love the team. I'm never gonna. There's not really a game there on this whole season I think I'm gonna doubt them. Where there's plenty of games for Denver that I am gonna doubt them because they've yet to show me really anything. I know it's a divisional game. It's on the road. I don't think it matters. I think the Chiefs by 14.
Yeah, 2 weeks later, same situation. I don't think being in Denver is going to make a difference. If anything, the Chiefs' offense is going to look a little bit more polished than they did 2 weeks ago. So I'm taking the Chiefs here minus the points. Our Sunday night matchup features a 2-5 Chicago Bears hitting the road to Hollywood after a big home win against the Las Vegas Raiders last week to match up against a sliding 2-4 Los Angeles Chargers team that has lost their last 2, including a 17-31 loss last week in Kansas City. The Bears look to be led for another week by Tyson Bagent as Justin Fields continues recovering from his thumb injury and sits in the last place of the NFC North, a half game behind the Packers, while the Chargers sit in third in the AFC West and are a half game behind the Raiders for second. The Chargers are favored by 8.5.
Yeah, I'm sure the NBC executives were really thrilled when Fields got hurt that they didn't flex this one. This is a horrendous game. I like the Chargers minus the 8.5. I mean, the Bears have shown actually some signs of life, but I think the Chargers, we talked about Cincinnati in desperation mode. I think this is Chargers in desperation mode also.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Chargers here to get one at home. But if they lose this game, is this the last game for Brandon Staley?
You think it has to be. A loss here would be tragic. And what's that put them? 2 and what would the record be? 2 and 6,
2
5?
and
What you said it was, but
yeah, 2 and 5 would be the record.
Yeah, and at that point in the AFC,
it's already pretty much over. But I mean,
yep. And they have Kellen Moore there already that could be an interim head coach. Like I think they would be all right to get rid of him.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it sounds like we're both rolling with the Chargers here.
Yeah, Chargers.
All right. Our Monday nighter showcases the 3-4 Las Vegas Raiders, who continue their Midwest road trip after losing 20-30 at the hands of the Chicago Bears to Motor City, as they face a 5-2 Detroit Lions team that are coming off a 6-38 loss in Baltimore at the hands of the Ravens. The Raiders look to continue being led by veteran and NFL journeyman Brian Hoyer as Jimmy Garoppolo continues recovering from his back injury, while the Lions return home and look to shake off last week's loss by taking it out on the silver and black. The Raiders sit second in the AFC West, while the Lions maintain control of the NFC North. The Lions are favored by 8.5.
Yeah, this is one of those games in Detroit where I think it's going to be insane. This is a hostile environment game. It's a Monday night game. I know the Lions are returning back home off of a loss. That's not going to matter. Detroit fans are used to losses. We'll be all right. It's this crowd. This crowd's going to be insane. It's a huge game. We're getting ready to go on the bye after this. So, and MCDC said we're going to be ready, man. So I think there's nothing to fear here. Plus, with what we've seen from the Raiders and their struggles, like, my God. I say it every week with the Raiders. They have a lot of talent, but they never play worth anything. So them going on the road to what's going to be a crazy environment, I like the Lions to get the cover here.
Yeah, I'm taking the Lions here as well. I see this as a bounce back game for them. Expect a lot of pressure on Hoyer. Goff should be able to get back to his normal self. I think there's probably some contention going on in the Raiders locker room after the comments from Devontae Adams that he's less worried about wins and more worried about personal stats. So that's probably not playing well inside that locker room. So yeah, I see this as being a statement game for the Lions as they enter their bye week. So I'll take Detroit here minus the 8.5. All right, guys, that takes us to our locks of the week. All right. And loop track gets me every time. All right. So far this year, I am 7-0 in my locks. I have yet to miss. So I'm looking to keep that streak going. Workman is 4-3 so far this year.
Pick yours first.
You want me to pick mine first? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. You may not like this, but I'm going to take your Lions here in the Monday night game. I think Big Dan's going to have these guys fired up and ready to go. Detroit may win this one by more than 3 scores. I'm going to lock in on Detroit over Vegas. What you got?
Well, I'm fine with it. The only issue is, are you fine with it? Because this is our first double lock for the NFL. Because I have Lions minus 8.5 also. I went back and forth between Baltimore and the Lions. I just love the fact that they're at home, like I just talked about. I think this is one of those performance games. Getting ready to go on the bye. Just got embarrassed. Like, you come back, you get right, you go on the bye, you finish the season. That's already going to be a dream season, essentially. I like the Lions also. So I know we've not had a double lock in NFL yet this year. We have done it in college. And I think we're 1-1 in college on the double lock. So hopefully our NFL debut is a good one.
Yeah, hopefully that's a good one here. So it sounds like both of us are locking in on the Detroit Lions over the Vegas Raiders. All right, guys, that does it for TNT podcast Tuesday Night Touchdown NFL Week 8. Workman, do you have any final thoughts here?
No, not really, other than hopefully the public gets back right in the betting world after last week's 0-8 performance in the top 8 games. The public took a beating last week, so it's time to right the ship.
That's been 2 weeks in a row now. So if you're struggling here the past couple of weeks, shake it off. It's going on for everybody right now. And
if NFL is struggling, there's some good advice going on over on the college podcast. So check that one out.
That's right.
I think we gave the stats out today. We picked 212 games, I think it was, and we're both over 50%. So 212 games against the spread is pretty impressive to be over 50%. So
especially when you consider that 6 of those games are not top 25 games. I mean,
7. We're doing the
7. That's right. Yeah,
7 a week aren't even top 25 games, and we're still doing that. So there's some pretty impressive stuff going on over there.
Yeah, worst case scenario, just go for the locks. We're both doing pretty well in the locks this year, but yeah. Hopefully we get things turned around here. Hopefully it's a little bit more of a regular season or a regular week for us here on the NFL side of the equation. But yeah, that should be it for us. As always, you guys can find us on all of the popular platforms: Spotify, Apple, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, all of that stuff. It's Tues Night TD Pod, TUESNIGHT TD Pod. We are testing out live streaming here. So for those of you guys that are watching this late, we try to record Tuesdays starting around 5:00. So if you guys would like to join us live, we would love to get some comments from you guys. Happy to answer some questions live here on the air. But that's that for us. So for Jacob Workman, I am Reese Downing. This is Tuesday Night Touchdown Podcast, NFL Edition Week 8. Good luck and good gambling, guys. Cheers.
Eat them up, Lions. Eat them up.